Hello everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how I made this tabletop frame style weaving loom. Here's a quick schematic of the loom I'll be making. I know that I want to be able to make finished weavings that are at least 12 inches wide by 14 inches long. To accommodate this size, I've made the outside dimensions of my loom 14 inches wide by 16 inches long. I'll be able to make all kinds of weavings smaller than this, but this is the largest size I can make. If you'd like to make this project too, feel free to pause the video to take a closer look at this schematic and customize it to your preference. The list of tools, hardware, supplies, and the cuts we'll need to make are on the screen. Please pause the video if you'd like to look at them for longer, as I'm going to get right into the project. Out of the dowels, we'll need to mark the following pieces.
We have 3 pieces of wood here. This piece is going to be cut into 2 18-inch segments. This piece is going to be cut into 2 16-inch segments. And this piece is going to be cut into 3 10-inch segments for the legs. So these 2 are for the sides of the loom, and this one is for the legs. Okay, so we have our long pieces for the up and downs, and we have our short pieces for the top and bottom. Right now we need to measure out where we're going to place the Dados so that the frame will sit in on itself flush, and there won't be, so we want them to sit flush so they're not on top of one another. So we're going to cut out a square here and a square here so that they fit into one another like Lincoln logs. I want that Dado to start 1 inch in from the end of each board, and I want it to be 3/4 of an inch wide so that it fits exactly with the other board. So that's 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to mark the top and bottom edge of that Dado and then continue it across with my T-square. And I'm actually going to mark that on 3 sides, because when we go over to the table saw, we're going to need, the Dado will be facing down towards the saw blade. So I need to have guidelines on the top edge so that I know where I need to cut.
There's tons of great tutorials on YouTube that go into this process further, but here's the gist. I adjusted the height of the blade so it makes a 3/8 inch deep cut into the dowel. This took a bit of trial and error, so I made sure to make several practice cuts on scrap boards before cutting into my frame pieces. For the first cut, line the board up to one edge of the saw blade and use the guide to slide the board through the blade. Keep in mind the blade will cut out 1/8 of an inch from the board in width. Once the first cut is made, slide the board over 1/8 of an inch at a time, making several passes on the table saw to carve out the dado. Once our dados are cut, we're going to go through and sand all of our pieces. I'm using 150 grit sandpaper in a mechanical sander that's gripped in a vise. I'm really particular on the smoothness of the wood, so I'll be here for a while.
Before we assemble the loom, we're going to go ahead and mark our lines where the threads are going to go, so the slots that the threads will go into. So when these get screwed together, They'll go in like that, and there will be a screw right here. So I know that the loom is going to be assembled something like this. And I know that this outside edge is where I want the notches, so I'm just gonna make a little mark with my pencil on that side and a little mark with my pencil on the outside edge of the bottom. And that's gonna tell me where I wanna make my marks. So I wanna make my marks on this side on that one and this side on that one. And we're gonna make these marks every 1/4 of an inch, starting about a 1/2 inch in from the edge of this Dido edge. We're gonna go in a 1/2 inch and make a mark. And then after that, we're gonna mark every 1/4 inch. Making these marks really, really light because I'm going to hand sand them off later. But ideally, if we make the marks as straight as possible, it will be less sanding because the marks will be destroyed when we cut the notches with the saw. So I've made all my marks in my top and bottom of the loom at 1/4 inch intervals. I've clamped them together because I'm gonna use a hacksaw to cut the lines, the notches that we need to do. And I'm gonna cut them both at the same time to kind of save myself some time. So this is gonna go, they're not perfect because there's a little bit of a difference in each end of the board. So I'm actually gonna start down at this end. And I want my cuts as straight as possible, so I'm gonna line it up with a line, and I'm just gonna use the saw's weight to just go back and forth and let the saw do the work for me and get a notch made. And then I can start going in. Now there's a little bit of a difference in height for these boards, so I am gonna have to adjust this just a tiny bit. But we are perpendicular, and that's what we want. You just want to go straight back and forth, make sure that you let the saw do the work for you, and go down about 1/8 of an inch. And now we're going to go on to our next one, and just keep going all the way across. So we've got all of our cuts made. After we finish the cuts, I'm just going to take a piece of sandpaper and go over the top really lightly. Take off most of the burrs and go along each side. And then you can, if you would like, fold the sandpaper and slide it into each cut and just take it across 1 or 2 times just to smooth it out a little bit. Taking out the roughest portions of it so that when you put your thread in, the cuts won't shred the warp thread. Okay, now that we've gotten those all sanded, I'm going to go ahead and take these out of the vise and take it over the table because we're ready to start assembling. And all of our pencil marks, see, got destroyed in between the sanding and the sawing, so we don't have to worry about re-sanding any of them with the electric sander because there's no more marks. So we're good to go to start assembling. We have our pieces cut with our notches. I want to actually make sure that I've got these in the right orientation. Make sure that the edges or the notches match up as much as we can. That looks perfect.
It was not perfect. I realized I made a mistake. One of the top bars should have had the dados facing the opposite direction when I was cutting the notches. This way, the notches on each board would be facing to the outside of the loom in the correct orientation for warping. I was able to fix this by flipping over one of the bars during assembly. This made the notches slightly off, but they're still functional.
Okay, we're just gonna roll with it. So we wanna loose fit our pieces, and we're going to screw in here, these two and these two. But before we do that, we want to make sure that our notches are facing outward and everything is sitting really flush. So we're not just gonna screw straight into these. We're gonna drill a pilot hole first just to make sure that the screw doesn't crack the wood. So I have a 7/64 bit here. It's about the same size as the shaft of my screw without the threads. So I'm just gonna go right in the middle and drill my pilot hole through both pieces, about halfway in, on all four sides. Now we've got those pilot holes drilled, we're gonna go ahead and screw in our screws. So I'm gonna go ahead and screw these together. I am gonna actually hold it because my surface isn't very stable. Okay, there's one. It isn't quite perfect, but it's sturdy, and that's what matters. So we're gonna go ahead and tighten up these screws. Okay. And that is our frame all screwed together. So next step is gonna be figuring out where we wanna put the legs. Now the legs, I kind of want them to rest within frame. Yeah, that's what I want. So I want those, when it folds flat, to rest within the frame. So that's where I'm gonna drill my hole roundabouts there. We're gonna try to situate that bolt. Okay, so that leg is a little bit long, but that's okay. I can sand that down. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just going, oh no, it fits. Awesome, okay, cool. That is great news. So we're gonna run that wing nut down onto that bolt. Give it a good tighten. I'm trying to pull the carriage bolt into the wood. The last thing that we need to do is screw this cross bracing in. This cross bracing is optional, but it keeps the legs at the same place when you fold them out. So I'm gonna screw a pilot hole again with my 7/16 drill bit right in the middle, and I'm trying to go through that leg, not through the frame. And I am actually going to go ahead and switch out the drill bit and drive the screw in now, just so that I make sure that I've got everything squared up. Be okay. I'm just going to go ahead and do the other one.
And there we have it, a finished tabletop weaving loom ready for its first project. If you'd like, you can stain or paint and seal this loom to keep it beautiful for years to come. I hope you all enjoyed making this loom with me, and I'll see you next time.